Thank you, Gagosian, for having us, and thank you, Louise, for doing this conversation with me tonight, and to all of you for coming out here this evening. Louise, I thought we could start with the title of the exhibition, 30 Ghosts, which is a quote from a film.
Actually, yes. So it's a quote from the book that the film 2001 A Space Odyssey is based on, Arthur C. Clarke. It's the beginning of the book starts with this, where for every living person today, the ratio of dead people is 30 ghosts behind each person. And the number it comes to at the time, but still is about 100 million. And there's about 100 million stars in our Milky Way. So for each star, there's a system like our solar system. And so you could think that for every person who lived before us, they have their own universe and heaven and hell. And that was moving. I liked that quote, and I thought it was very moving.
Your exhibition is really also about this in-betweenness. So you just mentioned the in-betweenness of the universe and the earth. Also the in-betweenness of the living and the no longer living. And in your work, I think what's very evident is also this kind of betweenness of living and non-living, of figures being propped up because they need help maybe to be propped up, but at the same time they're also so exuberant and so over the top in their aliveness, in the way that the bodies come out of the pantyhose, almost come out of the skin that contain these bodies. So I think it's a really wonderful quote to begin with, and for a title for the exhibition.
Thank you. Yes, I think of them as basically each painting is a sort of spot on that universe, and the chain also, I think, like there's the chain of the past and the future, and this chain of universe of maybe people in that universe, people coming after each other and sort of taking the last person's place.
You know, you mentioned ancestry in a way and everything that came before us. And this, of course, also brings us to art history. And you also very much reference art history and all the incredible painters who came before you. And one of the big references in your work is Dutch still life painting. So you've been looking toward Willem Heda, a painter from the Dutch Golden Age, who is very known for his vanitas paintings, especially the late breakfast paintings. So in his paintings, you very often see a scene just after it happened. There's a slightly crinkled drapery over a table. There are vases or glasses just tipped over. And there are also lemons. We see lemons in some of the paintings here. Over there, for example, this kind of curled lemon skin, which is something that is very present in his work as well. And also the green background in many of your paintings are somewhat a reference to Dutch vanitas painting, and especially Heda.
Yes, so I did want to structure this idea of the ghosts on Dutch still lives from the 16th and 17th century. So I took this basically base to sort of make my own image work. But yes, I did use the symbolism that would be present in those paintings. The fruits, they have to be peeled. There's this like sort of, yeah, you're right, like the afterwards bit where it's peeled and half-eaten, or glass is broken. They have the person or has mutated. Yeah, I thought, a lot about death and surviving, being alive, this chain of...
It's just exactly what the vanitas painting, of course, is a reminder of, of mortality, of the passing of time, but also of the still aliveness while we're here to witness those paintings. There's a sense of humor in your paintings too, so maybe staying with William Hedda for a moment, when I looked at the breakfast painting, maybe one of his most well-known ones from 1648, there's this beautiful vase or a can for maybe tea or water or wine on the table, and it has a very beautiful round shape. And this beautiful round shape reminded me of some of the shapes that we see in your figures. You kind of replaced this inanimate object that is there to dispense wine or, a liquid, and you've turned this inanimate object into a body and into the kind of round shapes of the behinds of the bodies that we see in your paintings.
Right. I use the bodies as this presenting in those Dutch still lifes, which is objects as this wealth and death, and I use the bodies as basically this being consumed and as consumers and as the object, but the way bodies cannot be objects, even though they try with the pantyhoses and they're spilling and falling and being dirty.
I mean, even the backgrounds in some of in the paintings, here in this one, for example, the green color in the background that seems to almost consume the figure in the foreground. So it feels as if the room or the setting that the figure is in is more alive or more of a subject, perhaps, than the human or the figure that we see in the painting.
That's a good point. I think also, having looked at a lot of Holbein or domestic scenes where, in a way, it's almost like as if the person is a bit the secondary. It's kind of everything that's around it, the little symbols, the flowers that they're holding, or weird shadows in the back that are, in a way, more alive than the actual person who is made to be, like I was thinking of the Habsburgs, these portraits of the Habsburgs where someone's trying so hard to make them look good. and then Goya, for example, does not. So you're like, oh, okay. But I find it so interesting that the ways to shape something that's not pleasant into something else that's find very interesting, and I think there's that too in those paintings.
Yeah, there definitely is. And then also the figure of the reclining nude. Maybe we can move from the Dutch vanitas paintings toward the reclining nude, which of course is very important in your work, of the kind of the nude figure at the center, propped up on pillows or on a bed or on a table in this case very often. And you've been looking at Titian and the Venus of Urbino.
So I've been looking at, a lot of, for this, Rubens and Goya too, actually, but actually someone mentioned that the other day, that the Ingres one, the Odalisque, that if she stood up, she would be this crazy giant with too many vertebrae, but she was made this way because it fit the size of the painting. So the person doesn't really matter. It's what she will look like in the picture. And I try to do the same thing, except that they're not providing, I think, what the Ingres would like.
In the reclining nude genre, the paintings used to be very much these idealized versions of women, but they were not real women. They were goddesses or ideas of women, from mythology, not actual bodies. So at some point in art history, a change occurred. And I think Goya was one of the painters, during Romanticism doing that, where he actually started to paint real women, and the nude Maja is one of those paintings that caused a huge scandal because he depicted a woman from a lower class in Spanish society who were very known in Madrid because of their distinguished cheeky behavior, improper behavior, and their elaborate outfits. So in his painting, famously, He painted two paintings actually. One is a dressed woman and one is a undressed woman, but both caused a scandal because they were clearly not these idealized goddesses or mythological figures anymore. So in your paintings, we're looking somewhat also at this in-betweenness again, but in between an idealized version or a version of a human body as it probably doesn't exist, but at the same time also a very carnal, a very kind of very, very embodied version of a human, where the kind of perfection or the idealistic representation of a body is so far removed from anything that a body could be.
Yes, I thought that was interesting, and also to give them the care, the painting, the best I could technique, a sort of sound structure and bass and technique, so that they could basically be crazy, but they were given the dignity or the importance of at least having this sound base, this sound structure. So yeah, I like giving too much attention to things that are usually seen as unimportant or base. And for example, that Goya one with that sign, it's the Witch's Flight, the Goya painting. I'm sure, I don't know if you know it. It's a man under a sheet with witches flying above, and if you look closely, he's holding the sheet with his thumb doing this. And I missed it for so long, and then suddenly saw it and realized that was a sign, to protect yourself against the evil eye. So again, this weird, funny body thing that humans do that clearly is so ineffective because those insane things are, and he's under a sheet. Using your body to do these things that are useless or just superstition, it's just very interesting. So again, giving so much attention to just this sort of silly human thing, yeah.
It's interesting because that hidden symbol, it's small in the Goya painting, but at the same time it is also, lends itself to the core interpretation of the work, which when Goya painted this painting, it was very much against superstition or against belief in sorcery and witchcraft or the need to protect oneself against it. On the right side of the painting, there's a donkey looking upon the scene, and the donkey is a symbol of ignorance. So it's really kind of a criticism of this superstition and belief in sorcery. So I love how you took that figure and how it really features in the work here, but also how you hide so many other symbols in your paintings. Some are more explicit perhaps, and others are not. Maybe we can talk a bit about some of those symbols too.
Yes, so there's, this one is a red spider lily, which in some Asian cultures symbolize death and heaven because it's pointing up this way, and reincarnation. So I thought that was really perfectly said what I wanted to say. There's something heavy, like pushing her down, and then there's this going up. So this, again, I think you're at the in-between of everything.
Maybe even this kind of blanket or curtain that needs to hold the figure in place and needs to kind of connect it, tether it still to the earth, and to remind us that we're still here in this physical, earthly body.
Exactly, yes, yeah.
We talked a bit about the lemons earlier, and during the Dutch time there were signifiers of wealth and of protection against scurvy,
right.
Also of trade. Mm-hmm. In some of the paintings they look incredibly juicy in some of the Dutch Vanitas paintings, and this curl is also, looks full of life, like it's full of life. In your paintings, the lemons look like they're maybe not as fresh, like they may be rotting. And I think the same is true also for, you know, some of the skin of the bodies that we're looking at.
Yeah, yes. I think those paintings are a bit dark, definitely. Their death is definitely part of it, but yes, they're a bit darker than sometimes, but I think hopefully they're also alive. As you said, I think, right, that they're just a snapshot of something that's, you're right, in between, in a state of maybe you see them, yeah, as a ghost, but or maybe it's future people. So yeah, the lemons, yeah, exactly. They're open and maybe juicy, but also kind of, it's maybe many, you know, also photographies where they put portraits of a face, like, and a lot on top of each other, so exposing many faces on top of each other becomes this other face. I mean, it looks like a human, but when you know there's like 30 faces actually behind, or, you know, in it, makes it very otherworldly.
It's very interesting because in a way, paintings are always somewhat a window to another world, to another time, but also, you know, in the sense of the picture plane, the way that the lemons especially are sort of hanging over the edge of the tables, and the way that the figures do too, you're drawn into the picture plane. So in the way that you speak about photography and the 30 pictures sort of or juxtaposed with one another, you're also creating this depth and inviting us, implicating us in the viewing experience and in the picture plane too.
That's true. Voyeurism is always interesting. Again, my point is never to be cruel to the figures, but I think they know they're maybe being watched. I mean, yes, those vanitas, it's to show you. They're showing you, yeah. But maybe like in the movies, they can't see you looking though. When you watch a movie, the people acting know someone's going to watch it, but you can still feel like a voyeur maybe.
You've said that you think very much about movies when you paint. And you've also said that to freeze scary things, rage, death, is so you can look at them from the outside. So they lose their power. They don't look back at you anymore. Could you say a bit more about that?
Yes, it's true. It's basically an experiment to try to freeze and objectify terror and rage and sadness, so that I'm in control of it. I can then look at it, but I still have to deal. I'm making it, so I'm in control. So then it's less scary. Yes, there's always that, and yes, it's almost at the point where everything's gonna fall down, but I saved it by just that.
You've also said that if horror movies are beautifully shot, they hit you harder.
Yes.
The same could be said about your paintings.
Yes, I think that's what I meant with the making sure that everything is made the best way that is possible, lures you in to feel maybe something you didn't expect at first.
Yeah, so which brings us to this question of the abject, or of that which maybe, you know, cannot be named or cannot be classified. The French-Bulgarian philosopher, critic, and psychoanalyst Julie Kristeva suggests that the abject is about confronting one's repressed corporeal reality, or it's an intrusion of the real in the symbolic order. So sort of anything that doesn't fit into concepts of object and subject, or something that is taboo or occupies this sort of liminal space. And to my mind, your paintings are going to that space, but bringing back the abject as that which has been expulsed from our experience or our conceptions, our representational order, the way that we categorize and look at the world in order to make sense of it, in order to be able to go ahead and live and make sense of it. You're sort of bringing that which has been taken out in order to make that possible back into the paintings.
Yes, that's true. Sometimes the best compliments are people who say, I'm really turned on by this painting, but I really feel like I shouldn't be, and I'm so confused, and is there something wrong with me? But basically, that's it.
It's kind of the greatest compliment.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting too, because, Kristeva thinks of it also not as a lack of cleanliness or of health that causes abjection, but that it's anything that goes against systems and order, or anything that doesn't respect borders, clear positions, rules, so anything that is ambiguous or in between.
Yes, no, exactly, yeah. Or this idea of what is base or unimportant, yes, being brought up to a degree that's uncomfortable. And it depends. Some people can't stand looking at their, I don't know, they're like, oh, the hair, it makes me sick. And like, oh, I actually thought that was pretty good. Like, people react to just, it's not of your own disgusting thing that you can't take.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you, I think, really bring that out and in people. I wonder if we could speak a bit about the painting titled Cut. And it is of a foot or maybe a composite body part. Do you want to say a bit about?
No, it's a foot. I was looking at this Rubens painting of Venus, who has her foot cut by a thorn. And again, it's like such a weird, it's a whole amazing painting that's really about that only. But then there's all these, the putty just not helping really. They're just around really like children, just having emotions but not doing anything about what is actually going on. And so I liked having this one in there that's just having emotions that are not helpful at all. But again, making it into this composition with the drapery where you're not sure what is important to look at first.
Yeah, this is so where this figure has stepped on a piece of broken glass. There's glass nearby, and somebody's holding this foot, and there's a red liquid oozing out of the foot, possibly blood. So it's very unclear also if the figure is kind of pressing the foot so that the blood flows more, or trying to contain it.
Yeah, no, yes, exactly. Don't you do that? I mean,
I usually try to contain it. But
I know, but at first it has to kind of get out.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too, because, in all of these, we spoke about movies and how each of these scenes somewhat, it feels like something has just happened or is just about to happen, which is again something that is very common in Dutch painting, is that you look at a scene in a Vanitas painting, for example, where a breakfast just happened or something has just happened. And this is the case also in your work, that you feel like you're coming to a scene, you're seeing that something has just happened, and you also wonder very much about, the agency of who has this happened to and who made this happen.
Yes, exactly. It's like it stopped at this point, but there's a before and after. And what people make up is so much better than if I explained everything. You're right. There's sometimes if you watch a movie and the sound is off and it seems amazing, and then you see it again with the sound on and you think, oh, actually that was crap. So hopefully there's not enough information so you know exactly what's going on, and I like that.
Also in that painting, there's this broken piece of glass, and glasses appear in your other paintings as well. With the red spider lily, the glass that the plant is in, and there are glasses also in some of the other paintings with, you know, a liquid that feels almost like it's alive, and there's always this question whether this plant is in the water or in the liquid to be kept alive, or if it is there because it's toxic and if it can potentially also cause death.
That's a good point. Yes, because yes, actually that one's called Enchanter's Nightshade, which symbolizes curses and witches. And it's true, actually. I don't know if you eat it. Maybe it's poisonous, actually.
Yeah, and that the nightshade is also a plant supposedly used by witches, which connects us again to the Goya, the flight of the witches.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So is the supernatural, or this kind of, you know, because ghosts, of course, feature in your work and in the title of the exhibition, but could you say something to the question of the supernatural in your work?
I always like when people make stuff up, because it's, you know, like religion. I mean, no offense to anyone, but it's usually so strange, and it's such good ideas that are so bizarre. I mean, I just read somewhere that prison bars are made of iron, or were, because iron is supposed to keep evil out. That's really funny, and like that and it is probably because you do need it for your body, for your health. It's interesting and funny. So yeah, that's sort of supernatural because it comes from somewhere, right, deep, that you don't understand, or no one really does, and you put it out as that.
Yeah, it's also, you know, we were talking about your references, which are art historical, of course, so there are also these images that you've grown up with, pictures, paintings that you've seen in museums, so all of these things that shape us, you know, be it a painting or be it a cultural belief, all of these things that influence us, sometimes more explicitly, sometimes more subconsciously.
Yes, because it's true, my grandma would take me to church, but I wasn't baptized, so I couldn't have the Eucharist.
Yes.
Right. And then I became obsessed with it because it seemed like this amazing thing that was probably incredible. And I did cheat once, and it was very stressful. Got one, and it was very disappointing.
Maybe we can speak a bit about the painting in the back, also the cherub with the blue ribbon, because there are actually two cherubs too in this exhibition, inspired by, I believe, a painting from Rubens.
Yes, that I really love those putti, because they're just, seems people will still have a hard time, not everyone, but painting children, and they're sometimes really terrifying, those putti, and so weird looking, but also so touching. Like, yes, I was thinking that they were like the peanut gallery, sort of, so they're hanging out around there, but yes, I think that one is also about maybe motherhood, or, you know, they're linked together, but this mother figure maybe is this black sort of abstract shape, and the putti is so the opposite of abstract. I like that idea.
Yeah, it has a very physical presence. You can really see its little face, and then of course the symbolism in that painting too, with the blue ribbon, which comes from other painters, Renoir, and how he painted women and children with a blue ribbon, which was also a symbol of innocence. And then in that painting, the figure of the cherub is on the side, like in the peanut gallery, sort of onlooking the scene, maybe commenting, singing toward the scene. But at the same time, there's this abstract figure in the center, which is kind of almost pressing out everybody else, the onlookers and everybody from the picture plane. So going back to how much space figures are taking up in the paintings in the domestic spaces, and how there's a certain sense of claustrophobia also maybe in the work, that all the exuberance of these bodies and of their psychology, of the allegory and meaning cannot be contained in the picture plane.
Yes, that's a really good point. Someone asked me once what was the one thing that made me go, or I can't remember how she put it, but the motor behind what you do, and I think that feeling trapped for me is that. So I think everything is always a little bit about that, consciously or not, like something's trying to get out.
Mm-hmm. To your last point, I feel there's something really about also control and freedom, or this kind of struggle between control and dominance in your work. Is that something that you begin, or that you sort of think about when you begin the painting process?
I know I start with the feeling, and maybe so I love this quote, so then that's in my head, but then it's usually feelings, but then basically I try to shut off everything. So stuff that comes out is very, I guess, unconscious. I also understand in that, of course, make decisions, but I think that's what just sort of comes out, and to just let it come out is a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm really glad that you are letting go of these paintings and are putting them out there in the world for us to spend time with and to experience, and think about what we see, think about ourselves, and all the things in between as well.
Thank you really so much for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you
so much. Really. Thank you.
Thank you.